At the party celebrating the new president's inauguration, I couldn't find my place card. As I was hanging around in trouble, Johnson, the department head, came over with a smirk and approached me.
Hey, what are you looking for?
I didn't want to admit it to Johnson, but reluctantly said, "I can't find my seat." Then, Johnson pointed to the foot of the chair with the luggage placed near the wall. There, my place card was tossed down as if thrown away.
Your chair was used for the luggage area. There's no seat for a high school grad.
That's what this is about. Johnson had deliberately moved the chair supposed to be mine to the edge, piled some unidentifiable luggage on it, and placed the seating chart under the chair.
Someone without a seat wandering around is in the way. Get away now.
I decided to just listen to what Johnson said. Then I'm leaving, but if you run into trouble later, it's none of my business. Right after, the chairman appeared and asked, "Where is the president's son?" My name is Alex Miller, 30 years old. I'm part of the hotel division at a major electronics manufacturer, Smith Electronics. The hotel division, as the name suggests, handles the electrical appliances associated with hotels. This involves introducing new products, replacing or maintaining ones that have been in use for a while. It's a busy department, but more interesting than just selling consumer electronics. One day, our division head was transferred abroad, and a new boss who had been the sales director at a subsidiary took his place. The new department head, Johnson, was known for his overwhelming sales ability. We, the hotel division team, were looking forward to his arrival.
From today, I'm counting on you all. With me here, let's increase our sales, outstrip other manufacturers by a mile, and become the top in sales in the hotel industry. I want you all to put your backs into it.
The new department head gave us a very encouraging welcome speech. All right, let's do this. I was motivated. However, that was only at the beginning. The first thing Johnson did as the new sales director was to conduct a background check on the employees. Not just sales performance, but also educational background, family structure, and career history were all scrutinized. The purpose of this wasn't clear, but that's Johnson's explanation.
By understanding what kind of person each employee is, we can find a sales style that suits them the best. In this way, each person's performance improves, and so does the department's overall performance.
The previous director did pay close attention to the employees' characters and evaluated them accordingly, but never went as far as to scrutinize prospective employees like that. It seems the approach varies from person to person. Johnson carefully talked to each employee, discussing their responsibilities and various strategies, as he said he would. Then, it was finally my turn for the interview. When Johnson called me, I responded to the other employees' words of encouragement with a clenched fist and headed to the director's office. I knocked on the door of the director's office 3 times and entered after hearing "Come in." It felt like I was taking a job interview, which making me nervous. This feels nostalgic, but I wish I didn't have to go through this again. I was both excited and anxious. As I entered the director's office and waited for Johnson to speak, he looked me up and down from his seat and suddenly asked,
You have high school as your last education. Is this true?
"Due to certain circumstances, it's true that I only graduated from high school. I had no intention of hiding it, nor could I lie about it. After I honestly admitted it, Johnson sighed heavily and said, "How did someone with just a high school education get into this company?" As if it was a huge disappointment.
I don't need a bottom-rung man like a high school grad as you in my team. Remember, if you mess up, you're out of here immediately.
He declared. Although I was shocked by Johnson's declaration, I never thought it would go beyond that. I figured as long as I kept up my sales performance, there wouldn't be any complaints. After all, that was the only way I could have. Being a high school grad is an unchangeable fact, but it had never been a problem before. So I continued working as usual, but it seemed naive thinking.
Miller, what's going on here?
Is there a problem?
Is there a problem, you ask?
Johnson slammed the documents he was holding onto the desk loudly.
What's with the sales at this lakeside hotel you're managing?
So that's what this is about. Lakeside Hotel was mainly catering to budget inbound tourists from abroad. As you well knew, due to the global situation, its financial health deteriorated, leading to a temporary closure until a new owner took over and it could resume operations. Even after reopening, there wasn't enough budget to upgrade the electronics, so it's barely managing to continue business with minimal maintenance and essential replacements. However, with the recent revival of inbound tourism, the business has been gradually improving, and it was expected to return to its former state soon. I explained this to Johnson, but he wouldn't accept it, scolding me as if it was my fault. Then he declared,
Stop making excuses. This is why I hate dealing with bottom-of-the-barrel high school grads. Listen, if you can't recover Lakeside Hotel's figures by the end of this month, you're paying a fine.
Our company did not have such a fine system. Some colleagues tried to intervene, saying so, but Johnson wouldn't hear of it.
We, elite college graduates like me and you guys, might not need it, but someone hopeless like Miller needs this kind of discipline.
He emphasized again to me.
Got it? By the end of this month. Make sure you recover those numbers.
In the end, the situation didn't improve immediately, and I actually had 10% of my salary taken as a fine that month, on top of not receiving my sales allowance. According to Johnson, an employee who made no effort in sales didn't deserve a sales allowance.
Listen, this is the new policy for this department. Those who aren't serious about their work will continuously receive this kind of tough love, especially for those too dumb to understand. We'll be strict.
That's absurd, I thought, but Johnson said this, staring straight at me. Fortunately, Johnson's love whip towards me ended with that one time. The reason was that my performance wasn't bad enough to warrant a fine. I was already among the top performers in the hotel division, and fortunately, Lakeside Hotel finally started recovering, leaving Johnson with no angle to criticize. I decided to be extra careful and prudent in my work to avoid giving Johnson any further reason to target me. Though Johnson looked at me with displeasure, he couldn't do anything if I didn't make any mistakes. If he did, he'd have to start finding the elite college graduates he praises as well. Since then, Johnson hasn't been able to do anything to me. Still, the snide remarks continued, and the "this high school grad" comments didn't decrease. But if I treated it like background music while walking down the street, I gradually started to mind it less. Humans really can adapt to anything. Just when I had managed to settle into my job, there was a change in our company's presidency. The current president stepped down to become chairman, and his son, the executive director, took over as president.
Tomorrow is an important day. Let's all do our best to make a celebration for the new president memorable.
Johnson announced to his subordinates with a broad smile. On the day, the company was taking a full day off. There's a party for the new president's inauguration at a large hotel ballroom, inviting all employees. Employees left work looking forward to tomorrow. The party started at noon. Each department has tables set up in the rented venue. My department, the hotel division, was located in the middle towards the right end from the stage. I checked the seating chart and headed towards the hotel division's table. But something was off. I couldn't find my place card. After making a full round, I noticed that everyone else's name, including Department Head Johnson's, was there, except for mine. That's strange, I thought, but my colleagues already seated could only say they hadn't noticed my name, having sat down at their assigned spots. That's possible. As I was wandering around, confused, Johnson came over with a grin, approaching me.
Hey, what are you looking for?
I didn't want to say it to Johnson, but I had no choice but to admit, I can't find my seat. Johnson then pointed to the foot of a chair used for storing luggage at the edge of the room. There, my place card was discarded as if it was trash.
Your chair was used for the luggage area. No seat for a high school grad.
So that's what this is about. Johnson had deliberately moved the chair I was supposed to sit in to the side of the wall, piled some unidentifiable luggage on it, and placed the seating chart under the chair. All to exclude me from the grand seat at the new president's inauguration party.
Someone without a seat wandering around is just in the way. Get away now.
Johnson said this with a pleased laugh. What a boring thing to do. Honestly, I was more shocked by the childishness of it all than angry, but I decided to just listen to what Johnson said. Then I'm leaving, but if you run into trouble later, it's none of my business.
What? Our company won't be troubled in the slightest by the absence of a lowly high school grad like you. Just disappear from the company while you're at it.
I got it. Please don't forget those words. With that, I left the party venue. When the party started, it turned into a bit of a commotion. I'll let Johnson handle the rest. Thinking that, I took a taxi home from in front of the hotel. When I got home, I took my smartphone out of my bag. I had turned it off when I left the hotel and got into the taxi. About 30 minutes have passed since then. Let's see what's happening. As soon as I turned on my smartphone, it immediately started blinking blue, indicating several messages and voicemails were waiting. Just as I swiped the screen to check the messages, the phone rang, and I accidentally answered it. Whether it was good or bad timing, it was Johnson on the line.
Hello, Alex. It's me, Johnson, your department head. Thank goodness you finally answered. Please come back to the venue right now.
Johnson sounded almost in tears as he spoke. What could possibly be the matter? I left because you told me to.
Don't say that. Just come back. It'll be a disaster if you don't.
I don't care about that. I was just following your orders, sir. I responded coldly.
I apologize. Please, I'm begging you, come back. If not, it might be the end for me. Please.
The latter part was said through sobs and sniffles, but it was no concern of mine. I don't care. That's why I told you. Whatever happens, it's not my problem.
Don't say that.
Johnson explained that right after I left, the party started, and the chairman noticed the vacant seat in the hotel division and asked, "Where is the president's son?"
I had no idea you were the president's son and the chairman's grandson. Your name was different, and nobody told me anything about it.
And then,
If I had known, I wouldn't have said those things. Please, come back. I'm begging you, please.
over the phone, Johnson repeated the same plea over and over. "Anyway, I'll tell everyone I left the party venue on Department Head Johnson's orders. Goodbye." I said mercilessly and turned off my phone again. Now, what will happen? Eventually, a car came from the venue to take me back. It wasn't because Johnson asked me to. It's because if I don't go back, my very character would be called into question. Upon returning to the venue, I was immediately escorted to my seat. This time, it's not my seat in the hotel division, but my new seat prepared on the podium. As I took my seat, the host introduced me.
Now, let me introduce you to the son of our new president, Alex. A big round of applause, please.
I was greeted with thunderous applause and took a seat next to my father, the new president, Tom Smith. My grandfather, now the chairman, was also sitting nearby. The host briefly introduced my background and announced that the hotel division of Smith Electronics would become an independent subsidiary, with me as its president. A murmur rose from the audience. Prompted by the host, I was set to give a greeting. I moved in front of the microphone and bowed to the audience. "I'm Alex Miller. For reasons, I've been going by the name Miller, but as I assume the position of president at Smith Hotel Management, a subsidiary, I'll be returning to my real name, Alex Smith. I'm looking forward to working with all of you." There seemed to be a bit of confusion among some in the venue, but it was quickly filled with loud applause. Johnson was nowhere to be seen, but then again, he probably didn't have the guts to stay in the venue after that. This left 2 empty seats at the hotel division's table, but since the division will soon be phased out, I didn't see it as a major issue. In truth, I've been going by Miller at the company, but my real name is Smith. It's the same surname as my grandfather, the chairman, and my father, the new president, because we are family. This has to do with the fact that I'm a high school graduate. When I was about to graduate from high school, I fell ill and had to be hospitalized for a long time. I had already decided on a university, but due to my need for hospitalization for more than half a year, I reluctantly had to give up my admission. The hospital had a classroom for long-term hospitalized children, but I often couldn't attend due to my condition. Then I had to be tutored remotely, but with treatment and days when I was too ill to do anything but sleep, my studies didn't progress as I had hoped. Still, I loved studying and didn't want my illness to stop me, so I made as much effort as I could. As a result, I obtained my high school diploma and was able to take the college entrance exams again. And then, after I had been accepted into college, unbelievably, my illness recurred, and I had to give up on going to college once again. I became despondent, losing the will to study, and even becoming passive about my treatment. That's when my mother's acquaintance suggested that perhaps it was my name that was bringing me bad luck. Though skeptical, my mother was desperate for anything that might help. After consulting with a priest, we were told about a tradition, still found in various parts of the world, of giving children unflattering names to protect them from malevolent forces. Names related to refuse, animals, or even vulgar terms were used to deceive malevolent spirits into thinking the child was not worth taking. Once the child reached an age where they could stand up to these forces, they would be given their proper name or called by their real name. Though such practices have become less common in medically advanced America, they persist in areas with low child survival rates. America used to be like that too. Perhaps they used false names to protect children from the clutches of evil. If you're feeling that down, why not use a pseudonym until you feel somewhat better? That's what I was told. It's unclear if the name is really to blame, but after it happens twice, it's natural to become anxious about various things. It seems like a good idea to try changing things up to improve your spirits. Of course, I couldn't take on a name that was distasteful, but it was suggested that I try using my mother's maiden name for the time being. So, outwardly, I began introducing myself as Miller. My mother even asked the hospital to note both Miller and Smith on my medical records. It seems the hospital wasn't too pleased at first, but after my mother insisted, they reluctantly agreed to cooperate. At first, I honestly thought, how can anyone believe in such silly superstitions? However, human emotions are a curious thing. Seeing my mother smile and assure me that everything would definitely be okay and I would get better gradually made me feel like maybe things would indeed turn out fine. And perhaps it was because I embraced that mindset and relaxed, focusing positively on my treatment, that surprisingly, I was able to regain my health in no time at all. My mother was overjoyed, convinced that changing the surname had made all the difference. Though the true reason for my recovery remains unknown. But since my mother was happy and said so, I figured it wouldn't hurt to keep it that way for a while. So from then on, I continued to introduce myself as Miller in public. I gave up on going to college, but instead, I decided to continue studying with a certain organization. It was an organization similar to what you might call a business workshop, and after my dad found out I was studying economics on my own, he introduced me to it, suggesting I should check it out. There, I studied various things related to company management, like economics, business administration, and finance. I also learned languages, picking up English, German, Chinese, among others. And now, I've joined my grandfather's company, keeping the fact that I'm his grandson a secret. This was when I was 22, the same age as recent college graduates. Actually, it was my idea to propose the launch of the hotel division. Both my grandfather and father agreed it was a good idea and decided to create the new department at the same time I joined the company. Aiming to eventually spin off this department into a subsidiary, I worked hard to build it up. Thanks to being recognized for our efforts here and there, I finally achieved my goal. After the party, I made a point to inquire about Johnson's fate. When the chairman, my grandfather, had his secretary ask why I wasn't at my seat, Johnson smoothly replied, it's the new CEO's welcome party. After all, I took this opportunity to put our department in proper order. A high school graduate is hardly necessary for the shining success of Smith Electronics. That's what he reportedly answered. Upon learning that I was the person he had referred to, my grandfather, the chairman, personally came to inquire about the president's son's whereabouts. At that point, Johnson finally realized I was his son and, in a panic, reportedly rushed to call me. Seeing Johnson desperately asking me to come back in the lobby, my grandfather's secretary realized we wouldn't make it in time for the new company's launch speech and sent a car to pick me up. Secretary told Johnson that we would have a detailed discussion another day and sent him on his way. 2 days after the party, in front of my grandfather, father, and myself, 3 generations, Johnson explained why he did what he did. According to Johnson, his father was a high school graduate who hardly worked, drank all day, and when upset, would become violent towards his wife and children. Having grown up in such an environment led Johnson to harbor hatred towards high school graduates, wanting to exclude them. I feel sorry for him, considering the kind of family environment he had. However, just because someone is a high school graduate, looking down on and trying to oust them is not something a leader should do. When my grandfather and father demanded an explanation of Johnson's actions, I honestly recounted everything. There was no need to defend him, nor did I intend to. It was then revealed that Johnson had embezzled the 10% of my salary he claimed as a fine and my sales allowance. He pressured the accounting staff to create a separate payroll slip for me, facilitating this embezzlement. Although the amount was small, it constituted embezzlement. An investigation into the subsidiary where Johnson worked before coming to headquarters fortunately found no similar misconduct, likely due to the absence of high school graduates among his subordinates there. As a result, the coerced accounting employee faced a 3-month pay cut and was required to submit a letter of reflection, while Johnson was demoted and transferred to a factory in a rural area. There are many high school graduate employees in the regional factories, whom Johnson despises. The world is filled with people from various backgrounds, all working hard and living their lives. Whether someone has a high school diploma, a college degree, a graduate school graduate, is a regular employee or a part-timer, everyone contributes. The decision was made hoping Johnson would come to understand this by working alongside those he looked down upon. However, unable to tolerate working with those he had demeaned, Johnson ultimately resigned. At that time, hearing Johnson's story, I fully understood that he had his own struggles, worked hard, graduated from a top university, and joined our company, which is considered a top-tier enterprise. And I also understood that he worked tirelessly to climb up to the position of department head. But that doesn't excuse his disdain for and unfair treatment of high school graduates. This time, the target was me, an unusual circumstance given my position as the president's son, and the matter was resolved relatively mildly. Had it been another employee, and had Johnson succeeded in his plan, he might have continued his wrongful actions. Embezzling salary could have escalated, potentially causing significant financial damage to the company. While I empathize with Johnson's circumstances, I cannot condone his actions. Everyone has their struggles. Hopefully, he will realize this in his new environment. Following the announcement of the new company at Smith Electronics President Transition Party, news about the establishment. Of course, my journey to becoming the company's CEO would be a part of that narrative. Johnson might see this news somewhere. Announcing my position as president of the newly established company as Alex Smith was a significant moment. I had told my mother that I would revert to my original name once the hotel division became independent. Still, my mother was very worried, repeatedly asking if it was really okay to let me return. But I'm no longer a child. I'm a full-fledged adult. Even if something bad were to happen, I won't just be silently taken away. I can fight for myself. Mom, think about it. I'm turning 30. Sure, I've been seriously ill twice, and there's no guarantee I won't get sick again. But isn't that true for everyone? After I explained this to her, I somehow managed to convince her. Though I didn't attend college, the time I would have spent there was filled with learning and networking in different ways. These experiences form the foundation upon which I'll build and grow the new company. Education is important, but there are many who, for various reasons, couldn't follow that path. I hope our company can be a place for those who have gained valuable experiences outside of formal education. It's not just about increasing sales and growing the company. It's about nurturing a diverse workforce. This is my goal. As I embark on this journey, I bid farewell to the name Miller, which protected me, and embrace my true identity, Alex Smith, determined to achieve my objectives.